Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our first official call. We're super excited to be here with you today. Our guest is Jamie True. Jamie is a good friend of mine, a serial entrepreneur, several exits, is building some really cool things today. We'll go into his life from a spiritual perspective, business, but before we go anywhere else, Jamie, if you could just give us a little background on your story, how you got to where you are today, the companies you built, and we'll kick it off from there.
How are you, David?
Pretty good, Jamie.
Good. Well, nice to speak to everyone. So just a little bit of background from a work perspective, serial entrepreneur. So started my first business when I was 17, didn't go to university, and went straight in, really as an entrepreneur, inventor, and starting things. And since then, I've had around nine companies, actually 10, which I founded, and I had probably 9 exits. So good track record with starting things and exiting on that. And at the moment doing 2 at the same time, which is great, which is the first time to do multiple at the same time, which is an interesting challenge and opportunity, and also investing in entrepreneurs and opportunities. So always looking to find great ideas to back fellow entrepreneurs. I'd say the journey's been very interesting. You start and cut your teeth on smaller things, and the last exit I had was definitely the biggest one, where I grew a business to over 100 million in revenue and exited for over 350 million as a CEO and founder, which was great, and an amazing journey with loads of ups and downs. And right now I've got 2 startups. So what's great about the entrepreneur's journey is you start something, hopefully it becomes something that people want, and if you do sell it, you're unemployed, then you have to start from ground zero again. So that's really been my journey a number of times. And just from a spiritual point of view, just to add to the mix, because I think that's just a big component of this, I started learning Kabbalah as well, I would say 12 to 13 years ago. And it was a sheer coincidence if that exists, to get into it, which has been a fantastic journey and learning for me to actually help me with all of my businesses.
You started your first company at 17 years old. Were you always knowing that you were going to be an entrepreneur, or was it something that came in your teen years? When did that kind of peak?
Yeah, I think it's coming from a place of like knowing that you need to make a success out of yourself. So I think it's not I want to be an entrepreneur. I think it's I want to be a millionaire, or I need to be able to buy this and sustain this and not have to worry about this. So I felt that definitely my motivation didn't come from like a job title of being an entrepreneur. It came from really, I would say, need, and out of my situation, I'm really wanting to succeed, because I saw that as an exit point and an ability to have independence, which I really wanted to have, just because of my personal circumstances at that time.
Yeah.
I'd seen both my parents as business people and entrepreneurs, and have big ups and downs and do well. So it was it wasn't scary for me to do that, which was I think very important. And that gives you the impetus and confidence to do that, because you've seen it and it feels okay to do it. But I'm sure like a lot of people on the call here, like as soon as like personal circumstances kick in, it creates like, well, how do I fix this, right? So I think building a business and building independence is so important, because it, sales and income fixes a lot of things if you can use it wisely. So, that's definitely where the push came from.
A lot of people have a desire, like you mentioned, to start a company, start a business, whatever the case may be. A lot of them don't manifest. The ones that do don't succeed. If you could attest 1 or 2 things to your success early on, even to this day, built business after business from start to, exit, what would you attest that to?
I'll share something which was a massive revelation to me, that came this week. I'm sure a lot of people love music on this call, right? And
Sure.
and I was listening to the new Eminem album. I don't know if you guys have heard it and stuff, but there's a new song on there. um, called Houdini, like who's a famous magician, right? And gets himself out of trouble. It's actually but actually it's a remake of a song which was very, very good in the 80s. But he's changed it. He's made it his own. He's brought it out there. I'm sure loads of people would never have known it as a remake of something which was really big. And for someone hearing it for the first time, that would be pure innovation and unbelievable. But actually, if you hear the old one, there wasn't a lot of innovation there. But he made something which was, I would say, of its time good, and just made it so much better. The advice I'd say to like people on this call is sometimes we rack our brains to be mad inventors, like in Back to the Future. So like, hey, I'm going to innovate something. So you want to create the flux capacitor to go back in time. And truly, like, it's great to be able to do that. But how many great things do we see which actually are that, which come out into the market? Not that many. But we still put ourselves under enormous pressure to be the inventor of that. And it can't be good enough. And we have to rate whether we're inventing something, whether it's good enough and fit for purpose. I would say, like, if you think about the Concorde wing, when it was invented, that someone asked the inventor, like, how did you do this? He just said, well, I made it lighter and I made it stronger. And it was very simple. So I feel like starting a business, one should really understand, is there an opportunity in this where people are already paying for it? And if there is, start by just making it a lot better and how it's done, because that can be hugely innovative. And then you can add, as you go into things, like all the real things that can take you to the next level. But sometimes I think in my past, I've kind of racked my brains too much to try and find something which is just so perfectly different. And actually that can be harmful, because if it is so radically different, sometimes it's because there's not a market for it. So I think everything starts at the seed. I've got this little expression that, like, concept precedes. And whenever you're doing something, if the concept doesn't precede everything and it doesn't really like nail on, then there's something kind of off. I hope that like answers your question.
That's great for anybody that's probably thinking of an idea, has already started launch of a company. What if you're before that stage? What if you have a desire to leave the corporate world, don't want to work the 9 to 5, but have no idea where to start, don't have an idea, don't have resources? What would you say as far as an exploration phase, finding the right people to connect with? Any advice there?
I think that shouldn't exist. Because if you have an idea which is good and you have a concept which is great, you can always validate something. You can always call people who would be a buyer of something and validate, right? And get feedback. And that will give you a lot of energy and a lot of boost and a lot of feedback. And that doesn't cost anything. And there's always going to be people who are going to back good people with good ideas. Right? The only reason things don't get backed straight away is it just doesn't feel obviously right yet, or there's something for that person. It's the wrong idea for the wrong person, or the right idea to the wrong person. So I think the key thing is validating something is really powerful to then be able to speak to someone, because what starts businesses is capital, really, and a great idea and capital. That's the second phase. So if you can validate very, very quickly, if you haven't got a track record, so you need to validate, do it. And then with that validation, it provides a huge level of confidence for someone to want to back something. And, like I said, like some people will moan, oh, it's hard to find the backing. That's kind of probably an excuse, because it means you haven't done enough work on the concept to make someone want to do the backing. So like the concept precedes again. If you've really, really gone through the concept and it really feels amazing, you've got huge enthusiasm, there'll always be a backer for it, right? And they're everywhere, because you can go online and just like, there's many venture funds, there's many like accelerator funds, there's many ways to validate something. So it has to be done. A lot of people want to skip. I think there's a lot of excitement in getting on with things rather than staying in the value prop phase, right? Things have to be like commercially like perfect, like from a disruptive point of view. The idea needs to be slightly disruptive. Everything has to have gone through a phase where you've thought through it, so the value is really there across every part, and it's different. It doesn't have to be like wildly different, I said, but different, and that's what makes it great. So, I think a lot of people don't want to stay there because it's painful, because it involves a lot of back and forth and it means non-starting, but that's where you should put all your effort.
Got it. And you mentioned raising capital. I think a lot of people have questions, their own ideas on it. What do you think? I mean, you raised a ton of money, right, at various stages in your career. What are the best things you can do in the process of raising money to ensure the outcome that you're looking for?
Yeah. I figured out something a little like hack, to be honest, early on, which is it doesn't matter how much money you have, but when you put skin in the game and you can underwrite your own thing, it really makes a big difference. So I think one of the first ventures I did, I was raising $3 million. I was raising on a $3 million valuation, and I think I needed $600,000. But I've managed to like pull together like 100 and something thousand from family and this and that and whatever. And I said to the first investor, it's $3 million. He's like, why is it that value? I say, because it's underwritten by my family and the first 100's in. And that was a real hack, I think, at the beginning, because it took away from this argument of what it should be. It's very subjective evaluation at an early stage. It could be anything. It needs to be fair based upon an opportunity. And so you have to provide that fairness to whoever's wanting to invest at that very high risk level. But I think finding and getting an underwrite on something which is fair really builds some strength and some certainty. Otherwise, you end up in dealing with a lot of people talking about a value number, which keeps moving. And I think that's not an ideal situation. So trying to get certainty on one price for someone and lead with the follow is definitely the thing to do. And if you hustle a bit.
So even if you have just 10K to your name and you're raising money, put that in just to show that you're
pledge it in. Say this is pledged. These are all pledged at this price. There is a hustle there. Pledges can disappear, right? So there is a hustle. You have to be optimistic. I think you have to have that optimism. And that cynicism as well at the same time of, maybe it won't happen, you might have to change it. But I guess get pledges for an amount and then
got it. And let's jump a little forward in your career and then we'll take some questions from the chat. But most people only dream of selling their company for 10 million, 20 million. Exiting, one of your earlier companies for 325 million must have had a lot of emotions and feelings associated with it or not. Would love to hear from your perspective. What was the best part of that? And then what was the worst part of that?
I think the knife edge of like, will it happen or will it won't happen? Because you get approvals and if something gets agreed, but then it has to go subject to this approval, subject to that approval, and that can be a month. So you sit like a sitting duck where anything can happen in the business, which could make someone change their mind. Anything can happen, right? A war could come up. Anything can change someone's mind. So I think that period of sitting there in that gap is definitely nerve-wracking. So I think a lot of work needs to be done in that gap. That you have to make yourself very busy, maybe park yourself at the office of the buyer really, to make sure that like it's almost done, because it's in those little gaps and areas there's a lot of uncertainty and all kinds of crazy stories come up. So I've had moments where in that last business, even the first round of funding, it was all agreed. It took 6 months to happen. We went for closing at the lawyers. We arrived at 8 p.m. to sign the documents. There was an issue. It got to 12 p.m. The person was going to, in the US, thankfully, it's 5 hours back. Someone was at dinner. They didn't like something. And it went all the way till 6 o'clock in the morning when they said deal is off. And I was like completely like, I couldn't believe what was going on. You couldn't write a story like this. And it didn't feel like there was any justified reason for this would happen. It didn't, and their excuse was kind of didn't even feel right either. But I just stayed at the lawyer's office and I let them know I was there, and it was like 7 o'clock in the morning and I pulled an all-nighter to make this happen, and it meant a lot to me. And I just kept going and going, and then they closed it. I got the right person at the right time to say, okay. So like, I think in those gap areas, you have to stay vigilant, I would say. That was the worst experience. And I think the best experience is that feeling that you're part of something bigger straight away after. Which is like kind of, it's a different pressure as well, which moves on, and you feel like you're in a different stage, which is good. So it's a really nice feeling.
Was there like this immense sense of excitement when the money hit the bank initially, or were you just, okay, I did it, now what's next? How did you feel?
You know what was really interesting? I think one would normally have that. I was going through an immense personal challenge, like a relationship challenge at the time. Um, and that really took the gloss off of it because where I should have just been on holiday and excited or really happening, I realized that there was another fight going on, and it was that this was really good, and I just had to deal with this. And um, I felt that definitely took all the gloss off of it um, in that moment because it just really kept it on a real reality point. Like, this is great, but so in a way, that's a good thing because I think maybe things can come to a head and you know, I kind of missed that exciting exhilaration point happening because I had this other challenge going on. So I guess the challenges don't go away. So you just got to, and the upsides hopefully will be there as well. So, um, you know, it's not a bad thing to not get overexcited, I guess, in that moment. It keeps you grounded.
Right. You'll still have your fun too, right? It doesn't need to be in that very moment.
Yeah.
We'll take a question from the chat now. This is from Dylan. He asks, with each business, did you exit the first one before moving on to the next? If not, how do you go about managing multiple business at the same time?
Yeah, no, typically, it's a really interesting one. I don't know if this is kind of just luck or in your mind when you think I'm ready for the next thing, suddenly someone wants to buy that one and you moved on. But I imagine in at least two or three of them, the idea had already come for the next one, and I already started the business planning phase and started that work and getting ready and lining up my chips for the next one. And sometimes it's that concept phase. But even if you are like ready, for example, that happened a number of times, but being ready, that concept phase can sometimes last a year and a half. So back to the drawing board, take a break, come back. So, they've always come. And I think you can always do that prep work in your spare time, right? You can build the business plan, you can do all that validation. That doesn't mean you have to, stop the thing you're doing. So there can be a healthy crossover.
And would you give that advice to somebody who's just starting out, if it's their first business, or would you want them just hyper focused on that? And then once they've exited,
validate, go for it, because knowing the concept phase could take a while. And let's just think you invented something and actually you think it's brilliant, and you want to jump ship straight away. Great, but then if you validate it and really go through, well, hold on, actually, I can't get that money for it. I can only sell it for this price, and then actually the costs are much higher. And then you actually do the business planning and you realize, hold on, I'd have left what I'm doing for something which doesn't work. You need to have done the business planning. You need to really understand, is there a market for it? How would I sell for it? What are the costs? Once you put it in like a spreadsheet as well, you've got the concept, and then like, can this work from a like commercial perspective? You get a real reality of the business in a virtual reality format in your own brain, and then you'll decide at that point, when is the time to go. But it's normally, when you're saying that, it's normally too early anyway. You've normally got time, because it definitely takes time. It's not, David, you just started something just right now. I mean, how many times have you gone to the drawing board of the idea?
Every day. Awesome. And then the next question was from Yehuda. He asked on a different topic, have you ever feared success or failure? And if so, what are you doing actively or have done to overcome those fears?
Definitely fear failure. 100%. I don't fear success. I think that would be really, I would embrace that and feel that would be fantastic. And I think a fear of failure can be quite irrational. And, I saw someone very close to me have lots of ups and downs, which really affected me. So like, I would not want to have to go through that. So that makes me fear it even more, because it's sad, especially if it's someone who you care about. So what do you do to go against that? I think the positive thing to do is to think, well, look, I hate that, but I'm not going to be fueled by hate. I'm just going to be fueled by the opposite side of that coin, which is if I really focus and give everything and push myself, then there's a huge chance that I could achieve the success. I think the fear of failure as well, if it's not your fault, as in you've done everything you can, you're not going to ever be a failure. But I think the key thing is, I think if one does fail at something, which we all do, and I do on many occasions at things, the worst thing would be because you didn't make the effort to really give it the best shot. So that for me would be the worst thing, because I would have let myself down. So for me, keeping that work ethic going is imperative, because by me dropping the ball on that makes the chance of failure all about my workout attitude and how much I've given into something, or how much love I've given to something. So that would be something I wouldn't want. And I think you need to spur yourself to not get in a situation where you make loads of excuses of why something didn't work, because I think you kid yourself. Unless you have to put your full responsibility into, that's my thing, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to put all the effort in. And you have to learn the things that a lot of people say, well, I'm not good at that, I'm not good at marketing. It's not, you have to be good at marketing. And you could say, I'm not good at product. If you're building a business, you have to be good at product. And someone say, I'm not good at sales, right? You have to be. And that's a real opportunity. So I definitely feel like I'm dyslexic. I don't like reading stuff. Like, then read. It's you really want to do the things where you don't think you're strong in, because otherwise you'll start relying on people and you don't know if they're good or not, and that can be a weighted average down on your success.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned consistency and discipline. Those are words that everybody likes to hear, hard to practice. What has allowed you, or what do you attest for just being really consistent with your family, with your business, with the gym, right? Every area of your life is consistent. How do you do it?
A very good question. I really don't like the feeling. So I think like we can all say I need to be disciplined because this is good and stuff, but I think we all know that feeling, like when we have a day where we like don't do very much, or like we don't have our diaries full of calls, and suddenly we have a day like where you don't really have a lot of connection. And quite honestly, this does not make me feel good. It's like having a morning without coffee, right? It's just like it's missing. So I think if you practice, and I think you just need to like this pain and pleasure stimulus thing. I think one should not feel pleasure to procrastination. I think we need to have pain, and we need to associate as much pain as possible with all the things that don't actually serve us. And I think I've done really good associations in my brain of like laziness for me is really bad, and I feel bad. Or just like eating, fried food. I in my head I think it's bad, so I don't do it. So I feel like fake it till you make it. Even if it feels good to like sit and play PlayStation all morning instead of work. I mean, I enjoy playing FIFA on the PlayStation, but not when I'm meant to be working or something like that, right? So I feel like those are just kind of like these excuses. In Kabbalah terms, it's like the ego, this kind of force trying to stop you from getting to your success. I think like pain needs to be associated with all those things. You need to have that honesty, and then you don't do it, because it's like, why would I do that?
It sounds like you don't have many limited beliefs. I think most people do, about their success, about their ability to manifest, whatever the case may be. If you're in their situation, if you're in their shoes, how can they overcome limited beliefs about themselves, what they're capable of? Just learning from your ability to feel really strong and confident in yourself.
Okay, so just to be clear, like I often feel like I'm on the precipice of failure.
Really?
And it's horrible. And the more business successes you've had, it feels even worse. Because it's like, oh, I've done 3 really good ones, or 5 good ones, or 9 good ones. So now it's like, it's the norm now. So a failure now would be even worse. So it doesn't mean because you're 8 or 9 down the line that suddenly failure's like, nothing. It's not a big thing. So I think it gets worse because you're older, you've got more responsibility. As you get older, you'll probably think, well, hold on, I wasn't as good as I was X years ago, and you're on a declining hyperbola, right? So, so you always, I think that it's not about, oh, you've got this mindset, it's great. I think it's real. It really is real to feel that this isn't going to work out, and this is bad, and this is awful, and this couldn't. But I think that's where you need to have faith in the fact that you need to buy a lottery ticket. You need to give it your best shot. And if it doesn't work out, really good expression I have right now, nothing is ever as bad as it seems. And nothing ever is as good as it seems. And the truth is that we've all had like, oh God, this could go terribly wrong. How many times has it really ever done that?
Right.
But when you start thinking about that, it really is, it cripples you. So actually, like, it will be what it will be. So the ability just to let go, I think, is pretty big in that instance where you can say, okay, I'm starting this. I could lose all this money. I could lose my investors' money. Yeah, that's the worst situation. But the upside is actually this could go really well. And I need to be totally clear focused to do this. Or I'm trying to get this working and it's not working. So I think the discipline needs to be, if I think about the worst scenario, you should actually tell yourself and associate a lot of pain to that. Because what you're doing is actually inadvertently putting like lead in your shoes. It is no point. It does not serve you at all. Almost be belligerent and ignore it.
You're bringing the worst case scenario into your life today before it's even happened, right? It's very silly when you view it from that perspective. I think it's fascinating what you just mentioned, that even though you've exited several businesses, that fear is actually heightened at this point because you've done it so many times and succeeded so many times. I think most people don't know that starting out. So I just found that really interesting.
No, it's quite, I'm in a situation now with one of my businesses. It didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to go. And it went quite to the edge, actually, recently. That was scary, because actually you trust in people, you want things to happen. And I didn't love that feeling at all. And in fact, I felt that would be at a later stage much worse than had it been early days.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. This is a question from Hermione. She asked, when you start a business, is your exit strategy clear, or does that kind of evolve and come over time?
It's not clear. It's not clear because you're going to pivot nonstop, right? So I think the strategy needs to be that you're going to exit if you want to exit. I think that's really powerful. Like building a business to exit means there's certain rules that you need to abide by. So businesses that exit have certain attributes, and it's really good to want to have those attributes. What are those attributes? But it can scale, but it has a big total addressable market, but you have that market validation, but you have recurring income, all of these things. They're amazing principles that you would want to go after to build your concept. And you can also have the concept that I'd love to have an amazing exit, and it's going to happen and be positive. And you can even tell yourself, I'd love an exit to an A-list, a Meta or a Google or whatever. Who is it going to be? The number one. You can have that, but being able to plot it out is tricky. Someone will buy your business when you wouldn't want to sell your business. I think Warren Buffett said a really great thing. Someone asked him, when's the right time to sell your business? And he said, when everyone tells me it's crazy to sell. So there is no right or wrong here. But I think it's the principles that you want to have when you build a business, which can be quite absurd, really, because these principles, all these things of recurring and stuff, don't normally apply to early stage businesses sometimes. So you really have to grit it out because it just takes time to get there. And there's a very, very bad period, I'd say, of having in startups where people think it's glamorous. The first 3 years of any startup nowadays is the worst I've seen. I would say that it's now in my life, there were many more barriers to start a business before in tech. Now there's no code, there's AI, there's the easy way to start, right? It's much faster now to get things up. So I'd say that, it's much harder now to start a tech business than it was 10 years ago when there were many more barriers where, it was much more to do with like how much capital you could raise.
Really? So you'd say today, even though there's more tech and it's easier to start, it's just given that everybody can do it, the barrier to a successful company is a lot greater than it used to be.
Yeah, you need to be better because actually people can get to where you get to with less money, which means you need to get past them quicker with less money, which means you need to be really resourceful. The worst, getting things wrong is fine, but there's a cost to getting things not quite right. Because you build something and then you have to revert back and change it. And changing it costs you time, and time is burn. And every month of burn is just adding to that. So your costing is equity cost, right? So the real trick is being able to get to your concept to a market fit as quickly as possible, because that basically saves you a lot of pain, but also saves you a lot of equity.
Got it. There's a ton of questions in the chat. I want to be sensitive to your time. I'm sure you only have a couple minutes left for us here. But so I'll ask two questions that are related more to family and your spiritual life. You mentioned your study of Kabbalah earlier and spirituality. do business and Kabbalah go hand in hand? And if so, where have you applied the study of Kabbalah or spirituality into your business life?
I think not a trick question, but I think concept precedes. I think Kabbalah precedes here because it's I would say a handbook and a cheat code to living, to be able to have a better life, I would say. So it's not only good for work, it's great for everything. The biggest, one of the biggest concepts around reactivity and the ego is really, I would say, powerful when it comes to the work environment. Firstly, because you have to work with loads of people, and being able to figure out if someone's where they are, what the reason they do things, and their motivation, and where they could succumb to things that maybe not good for you is important to be able to feel that. I think so. That's a real power tool to have. And the other thing really is the resilience and not being able to beat up on yourself because you realize that everything is perfectly designed for you rather than to destroy you. Because when you're doing a startup, it really is not easy. So it's just not an easy thing to do. You're creating something out of nothing. So there's pain in that. It's like making a diamond. There's pressure. So I think that Kabbalah is amazing because it enables you to really regulate and have meaning in what you're doing, which gives you stamina and it gives you a whole different perspective to succeed. And it's like the 12th man, it's like it's there to help. So being able to have that kind of spiritual wisdom from people who have done it before and apply it is, I think, quite important. Because without it, I think it's just harder. It's like a wind in your sails, I would say. That answers the question.
Yeah, no, completely. Hopefully, I'm not sharing too much here, but you're recently married and you have a newborn at home. The question from Melanie was, how do you balance your personal life, right, with all of that, and then your companies that you're running today and your investments?
I honestly really enjoy going to work, but I really enjoy waking up at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. to feed the baby. It actually makes me happy. Believe it or not, like I do get tired sometimes, but I think that it's been so enjoyable that it's okay. And it's not been, it feels like it's been amazing. So yes, it's busier, it's been harder, but this is down to like mental ability and mindset. Like if you're doing lots more, my dad had this expression. He said, like, if you want to get a job done, give it to a busy person, right? Like, so it's okay. It's just one other thing to do. If you think that I've got capacity, I can handle it, then it's fine. I think where it gets really, where the question is really interesting, I think when people start thinking, oh, I can't handle something anymore, this is too much, you suddenly made a switch in your head, which it is too much, and then it becomes too much, and then suddenly you're on a downward slope. So this, again, it's the discipline to say, no, like I may be overwhelmed and it's everything's like getting dropped, it's fine. You just need to let it all go and just do what you best really at that point. I think that's how I'm pulling it together. Maybe the wrong
answer. I mean, you look good. You don't look tired at all. So something working. I think a good place for us to. There's a bunch more questions here, but I'll ask this one here.
I'm not in a huge rush, but it's good entertainment.
Somebody asked. I know we're very centric on startups and building your own company. Somebody's like, if you're just in the 9-to-5 life, you want to enhance that reality that you're currently in. Do you need to be in the startup world? Is that something that everybody needs to do? Is there a form of freedom that you can have in a 9-to-5? What would your thoughts be on that from somebody who's not really in that world?
Okay, so look, if you do something you love, it's great. So you don't need to be in a startup to do it. I think there's a line between where do I want to be as a person and does what I'm doing allow me to get there? I think if there's an imbalance with that, then you need to reconsider. I know a lot of people who work in banks and they are so wealthy, right? And they're 9-to-5. They work much worse than 9-to-5. They're employed, they're in finance, and they make a huge amount of money. And actually, to make that kind of money as an entrepreneur would actually be really difficult. So there is absolutely opportunity everywhere to be employed and make a great living and be self-employed. I think that that's not the question. I really think the question really is, I want to get to that with that lifestyle, and is what I'm doing going to help me get there? And if there is a no, it's not going to get you there, then you probably need to think about, maybe my expectation is wrong or what I'm doing is wrong, because that would make me feel bad. Like working to something knowing that wouldn't get to me where I need to get to. That would be a really bad feeling inside for me. So I hope that answers the question, because it's not about the job.
That's a great point. Yeah, there's a ton of bankers that the guy's building a company for 7 years, they invested in it and they exit before he does, right? So we've seen that time and time again. If somebody is driven by money, you mentioned that early on. I think we know money has energy. Everybody's driven by money. The desire for money is quick money, right? Instant money. Is money as good as it sounds? Is it as good as people sought it out to be? Just kind of, can you talk about money and your perspective surrounding it, from not having it to having it? Like what is really different in life?
It's a great question. I think not having it is painful. But then if you have it, it's painful because you have to keep it. And then it's painful also because you're scared of losing it. So I think the real answer is that actually it's a means to do great things, which are temporary sometimes and permanent in other times. It's an honor to get it and to use it and keep it, and to actually have some kind of cadence with yourself so that you can use it in the right way. I think sharing, it's a bit of a cliche and a platitude, sharing and stuff, but actually it does make you feel good to share. And by the way, having a load of money and not being able to share it with someone isn't very satisfying. So I just feel like we all have a responsibility to make money, so we don't have to rely on someone else to give it to us, because I don't feel that doesn't feel good. But I also think the amount of it really is, I think everyone adapts to what we have to have the best life possible. And you can have a great life, with less money by hustling more. And, you can pay more for things and still get the same outcome. So I think we all have to just, I think earning makes you feel good. Creating makes you feel good. Sharing makes you feel good. And maintaining makes you feel good. I think when things get out of control, so I can't keep my money, I keep losing my money, and you hit people hearing those things, then it's going to be really painful, because it's not about the money again. It's about how are you being wise with your choices, and are you making the same mistake loads of time and time again? So, I know a lot of people who are not multi-millionaires, but they're really happy. I know a lot of people who've got so much money and it's a bit of a mess. So, we all have to worry. I think there's a lot of comparison. I think worry about yourself. Worry about making money for you. Do a great job on it. And it might be not so good for someone else, but you've got to feel good in yourself, right? There's a lot of comparison with money, which makes us feel never as good. And there's always going to be richer people than you.
That's for sure. It's a constant battle, right? If you look at the Forbes list every day, it's never going to be fun.
No.
So let's pivot to this. If somebody's in their current reality, whether it's business, whether it's personal relationships, and they're discontent with life, they're not happy with the current reality, but they have a massive desire to level up in all areas, what would you say is a good way to start? It doesn't have to be a business answer. It can really just be a life answer.
I think there's a short circuit. Because if there's something wrong, I think there's a reality as well. I think we all have to get into reality and level with ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to say this isn't working and I'm going to do something about it. I think it really has to start there. I've definitely been in a situation where I haven't been happy and I've delayed things and I've kicked the can. And eventually things really started getting better when I stopped kicking the can and said, look, I actually am honest with myself that this isn't going to work. We have to be brave, because, there's that whole, pain and suffering expression. Making a brave decision to change something is not roses all the time. So I think we should all, actually on this call, I see it all the time. There's always something in our lives where it's you know what? I'm just living with that, but I could do better. And I haven't really been prioritizing that or being totally honest. So yeah, I think we all have to do that regularly, like clean out our closet all the time, effectively, with these things. So yeah, that would be my answer to that one.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of something right now. I need to change.
Yeah. What, you want to share it?
No.
After the call.
Yeah.
With this, a question just popped up here. Well, this is from Karen. She asked, with how things are going on around the world, do you believe that there's a certain place to live that would help between money going in and out, in a sense, to make the most of what you currently have?
Okay, I'm trying to understand that. So
Yeah.
So is there like a better place to be where if you were spending and receiving, you'd get a better lifestyle? Is that right?
Correct.
Everyone's moved to Dubai, right?
No taxes.
And no taxes. I don't think, I honestly think the US is the best place to earn money, and I think Europe is the best place to spend money.
So travel between Europe and the US and you'll be in a good spot. Awesome. And
that's from my experience.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, most of the people in the call here are in the US, I'd imagine, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And by the way, I live in London. 98% of my business right now is in the US.
Well, 98%.
Yeah.
And that's by design, I assume, right?
Yeah, it's just, there is a very, very different economy, the United States of America versus Britain or, France or individual countries where, it's, 350 million people with the biggest economy in the world, right? Debatable biggest, China, but but it's an amazing place to be. There's always, an excuse to go somewhere else to earn money, spend money, but it's remarkably powerful place. So I'd always say if you wanted to earn, definitely the US. You have to do it there. And valuations and the sophistication of how people will see things from how companies are valued, how people invest, all the greatest minds, all the greatest investors, some of the greatest companies, they're all in the US.
Right. And then let's wrap up with this. What do you've done so much in your life. What is your current desire today? As far as your next level, quote unquote, what are you seeking to accomplish that you haven't yet? What is your daily driving force? Hopefully there's
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting about this question? You'd probably think I'd say, I've got to make a business which is going to be much bigger than the last one or something like that. And that was probably my answer, I felt like a year or two ago. But I just don't want anything to fail. I know it's a terrible thing to say it that way, but actually what I really want to do is, as you start something new, is put all my efforts into making it succeed. So and not put some limitation, but it's going to have to be this big or that small. I've let go really on the outcome of how it should be. I don't really want to do that. I feel like quite limiting. There's quite a limit right now. So actually what I want to do is look at all the areas I've invested my time in and really push to make sure that they succeed and really put all my energy in okay, I've got to make that succeed. And I feel that's really positive because it's not there doesn't feel like there's a restriction, but it has to be a certain size or less or more. It's just, it has to succeed. So it's where do you put your energy and really give those things energy? Because it's a lot of work. And a lot of unexpected things happen. So and I still feel like right now, that will make it work. And I don't have to worry about the outcome. So it takes a lot of there's a lot of expectations we put on ourselves, but I think we don't necessarily need to do. Make it work, best of your abilities, and really push as hard as it can be is powerful.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I can see from the people in the chat, everybody gained a ton from this. So we'll definitely have you back on. It was super insightful. And Jamie, I'll see you soon. Appreciate the time.